Okay, here I'm going to show you a couple of fairly simple examples of multiplying algebraic fractions. The processes are exactly the same as what you would do with numerical fractions. So you need to write it down. So basically simplify everything you can and try and present a single fraction, or most of the time it'll be a fraction, but it's one single answer, certainly not two fractions in the answer. So we are going to simplify. And the first one is 4 over d times d over 8. Okay, so when you have two fractions being multiplied together, you can cancel anything in the top with anything in the bottom, provided they have common factors. So we could look at the 4 and the d and see if they have any common factors, or the 4 and the 8, or the d and the d, or the d and the 8, right? The only thing you can't do, you can't look at this d and this 8, or this d and this 4. You can cancel anything in the top with anything in the bottom. So if I look diagonally, I can see 4 and 8 have common factors. The highest common factor of 4 and 8 is 4. 4 will go into 4 once and 8 twice, so I can do that. D and d, the highest common factor of d and d is d. So if I divide both of them by d, that's going to be 1 and 1. So now we have 1 times 1 on the top, which is 1, over 1 times 2 on the bottom, which is 1/2. Okay, the second one, we have 5 over g times g cubed. 5 over g times g cubed. So it looks a bit confusing, because potentially you could argue that this isn't a fraction, and actually thinking about it in terms of multiplying algebraic fractions isn't necessarily even the most helpful way, but I am going to express it like that because it certainly should be helpful in terms of actually explaining it. So I'm just going to rewrite g cubed as g cubed over 1. So this equals 5 over g times g cubed over 1. Okay, so now we've got it in the same form as we had the first one, and we can look to cancel anything in the top with anything in the bottom. The 5 and the 1, the highest common factor is just 1, it won't do anything, so we keep those the same. 5 and the g, no common factors, g cubed and the 1. When I say no common factors, it's 1, and 1 doesn't help. So the only thing that does have common factors other than 1 is the g cubed and the g. So the highest common factor of g cubed and g is g, so we divide them both by g. So g cubed over g is g squared, and g over g is 1. So now we have 5 times g squared, which is 5g squared, over 1, which is just 5g squared. If you do present an answer like this, 5g squared over 1, you are showing a lack of understanding there. So do recognise that when something is over 1, you really don't need the 1.